This is a Squiz Kids podcast. Your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you.
It started more than 2 decades ago. It connects people around the world, and it can be both fun and a little bit risky. This is your Squiz Kids shortcut to social media, the podcast where we dive into the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the big news stories. I'm Christy Kijarina.
And I'm Bryce Corbett.
Hey Bryce, have you noticed how many people are glued to their phone these days?
What? Oh, yeah, hang on a sec. Let me just hit like. Oh, hey, Christy, sorry, what were you saying?
I was just saying how people seem to be glued to their phone these days.
Oh, right, yes. It's like everyone's phones are their best friends.
I know, but in the olden days when we grew up, there was no social media.
Now you're making me feel old, Christy, but you're right. And today it's ubiquitous, which is a big word meaning that it's everywhere. And there's been a lot of chat in the news recently about kids needing to be protected from it. So what's that all about? I thought it was just dance challenges and sharing videos with friends.
It turns out there's a lot more to it than that, Bryce.
And today, we'll log into the world of social media and find out how long it's been around, why people love it so much, and what we should be careful of when using it. So, put down your devices, children, and let's get started.
And listen carefully, there's a squiz at the end.
How?
All right, Bryce. So although it might seem that social media has always been a thing, it's actually relatively new. When I was a kid, social networking meant going over to your parents' friend's place for a barbecue on a Sunday afternoon.
Yes.
How about we take a trip down memory lane and see where social media, as we know it today, began?
Okay, great idea. Let's do it. So, the story of social media didn't start with videos, apps, or endless scrolling. In fact, it kicked off with big, boxy computers and dial-up internet connections that whirred and screeched at you.
I remember those. Yeah.
Way back in the 1970s and 80s, so long before any of you were born, text-based bulletin board systems, or BBS for short, allowed users to dial in, post messages and share tiny data files. They were super basic, but they were the beginning of online communities where people with similar interests could connect.
That's right. And then the first real social networks came about in the late 1990s and early 2000s with platforms like 6 Degrees and Friendster. These were some of the first places that you could create a profile and have a friend list. But even though millions of people created accounts, very few had internet access, so engagement was really limited. Imagine no internet.
No internet?
Mm-hmm.
I can't even begin to imagine that. Then, in 2003, a little platform called MySpace was launched. By February 2006, 54 million people had profiles on MySpace. Now, you could customize your profile, you could share your thoughts in a weblog, which was kind of like an online diary. You could share photos and music, and you could connect to friends and friends of friends. Starting to sound a little bit familiar, Christy?
It's getting there. And then in 2004, a platform called Facebook was launched as a way for college students in the US to connect. But it quickly grew beyond colleges, and soon people all over the world were using it to stay in touch, share photos, and see what their friends were up to. And with the launch of Apple's first iPhone in 2007, people could now carry their social media accounts with them in their pockets.
And Christy, that's not all. Around the same time, other platforms started popping up too. Twitter, which is now known as X, was launched in 2006. It let people share short updates or tweets. And then Instagram, which came out in 2010, was all about sharing photos and videos. And then came Snapchat in 2011, where messages and photos disappeared after they're viewed.
Exactly. And have you ever heard of a little app called TikTok?
I I may have, yeah.
Launching in 2016, TikTok became super popular for short, fun videos. So, from the early days of BBS to the rise of all these different platforms, social media has really changed the way we connect and share our lives.
Wow, what a journey. From those noisy dial-up connections to the sleek apps on our phones today, social media has come a long way. And it should be noted here, and we'll talk about it a bit more later, that there are age restrictions for being on social media, meaning kids really shouldn't be on it, at least not unsupervised. But before we get there, Christy, let's look at why people love social media so much.
Why?
Well, Bryce, one of the big reasons people love social media is that it helps them stay connected with friends and family, no matter where they are in the world. Did you know that there are over 4.5 billion people using social media worldwide as of 2024? I know.
Amazing.
That's more than half the world's population.
Wow, that is a huge number. And it's not just about staying in touch, of course. Social media is also super fun and can be entertaining. You've got hilarious memes, cool videos, and even games. It's like a never-ending amusement park in your pocket.
Absolutely. But Bryce, there's a flip side to all this fun. Have you ever heard of FOMO?
FOMO? Is that some kind of new dance move?
Oh, not quite. FOMO stands for the fear of missing out. It's that feeling that you get when you see your friends hanging out without you, or when you think you're not in the loop with the latest trends. So social media can make this feeling worse because you're constantly seeing what everyone else is up to.
Aha, I get it. And there's also the endless scroll, right? Sometimes you just keep scrolling, and before you know it, hours have passed.
I know that feeling. The endless scroll was actually designed to keep people engaged for as long as possible. It's kind of like a bottomless pit of content.
Right.
And let's not forget about the addiction to likes. People often feel a rush of happiness when their post gets lots of likes, but it can also make them feel a bit bad or sad if they don't get as many as they hoped.
Yep, that's true. And it's not great, Christy. It sounds to me like social media can be a bit of a double-edged sword.
It can. There's good and bad sides. But on the bright side, social media also allows people to express themselves, to share their talents with a bigger audience.
Yeah.
Whether it's art or music or funny videos, people can find others who appreciate their creativity.
Yep.
It can also be a really powerful tool for learning new things and staying informed about what's happening in the world.
This is true. So while social media has its ups and downs, it can be a wonderful way to connect, entertain, and express yourself, just as long as we use it wisely. And don't let it take over our lives, and always be sure to balance things out. So what, Christy, should people be careful of on social media?
What?
Bryce, you mentioned balance. That brings us to our next question. What should people be careful of when using social media?
Aha, the safety talk. Kind of like putting on your helmet before riding your bike.
Yep. First off, did you know that most social media platforms have age restrictions? They usually require users to be at least 13 years old, so none of you should even be on it.
So, why then have we just spent the last 8 minutes talking about it?
Well, that's because social media is a topic that's increasingly in the news, and especially the impact that it's having on young people. Because governments here in Australia and overseas are increasingly worried about the negative effects that being on social media can have on young, developing brains. In fact, there's currently a push by governments to raise the minimum age limit for a social media account to 14 or even 16.
And tell us, Christy, why is that?
Well, it's because very little of the content on social media is actually regulated. That means that anyone can post anything, and that means kids might come across things that their brains aren't ready to handle. It's kind of like wandering into a haunted house when you thought you were heading into a candy store.
Yikes! You do not want to end up in the spooky basement of the internet.
You really don't.
And Christy, kids are like superheroes with a secret weakness. They can be more susceptible to the tactics used by advertisers on social media because some ads are designed to trick you into buying things you don't need, like a third pair of those light-up sneakers, or even worse, expose you to stuff that's inappropriate or people who are not good. Plus, those endless scrolls are like a never-ending pack of your favourite chocolate or salty snacks. You just can't stop munching. While in the short term that might feel good, in the long term it's actually doing us harm.
Unfortunately, it is. And another thing to consider is that in the olden days, when you and I were kids, our homes and our bedrooms were safe spaces where we could escape anyone who might be being mean to us. But now, with phones and social media, it's kind of like inviting the school bully to a slumber party, but every night. No thanks.
Well said. Yeah, nobody wants that party pooper. So what should kids do, Christy, before going on social media?
So, first and foremost, if they're under 13, they should know that they actually shouldn't be on it. Or if they are on it, only with permission from their parents.
Good advice. But what should kids do while they are waiting to be old enough to get on social media?
Well, in the same way that an athlete trains their body for years and years before they go professional, kids have got to prepare their brains before they get on social media.
And I think I know what you're about to say. The best way for kids to get their brains in shape before they launch themselves into the swirling sea of social media is to learn that not everything they see online is real. To stop, think, and check before believing everything they see, read, or hear.
And Bryce, the best way to do that is to make sure your classroom is among the 2,500 around the country who've signed up to Newshounds. It's our free media literacy program for primary school kids, where Squizzy the Newshound teaches kids to sniff out dodgy things online.
Nice plug, Christy. Very subtle.
I know.
And I suppose at the end of the day, it's no different to learning to swim or learning to cross the road or learning about stranger danger.
For sure.
All of these things are considered really important life skills that we need to learn when we are in primary school. In time, we're going to understand that media literacy, or being a careful, considered consumer of information in its many and varied forms, is just as important a life skill to learn when you're young, and certainly a life skill you should learn long before you're anywhere near to having a social media account.
That's right. And the other thing to remember, when you get old enough to be on social media, it's always great to involve your parents.
Yeah.
Think of them as your social media sidekicks.
100%.
Parents can help manage social media accounts and keep an eye on what's happening. And even for older teens, it's a good idea for parents to be aware of their social media activity to make sure that they're safe. It's like being part of a superhero team. You might be the hero, but every hero needs a sidekick, right?
100%. That makes a whole lot of sense. So enjoy social media when you're old enough, but make sure you're using it wisely and with a little bit of help from the adults around you.
Absolutely, Bryce. Social media can be a great way to connect, to learn, to have fun, but it's important to be aware of the potential risks and to take steps to protect ourselves.
And hey, if you're ever in doubt, just remember to ask yourself, what would Squizzy do?
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. What was the name of the first super popular social networking platform that launched in 2003? This will test you. Starts with the word my. Anybody say MySpace? You are correct.
Question number 2. How many social media users are there in the world in 2024? Yep, it's a whopping 4.5 billion people.
Woo! Question number 3. One thing that can cause people to get a little bit addicted to social media is FOMO. What does the acronym FOMO stand for? Well done if you said fear of missing out.
Well, that's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us as we explored the who, what, how, where, when and why of social media. Teachers, there are excellent classroom resources related to this topic on the Squiz Kids website, and there's a link to them in the episode notes.
And parents and teachers, if you'd like to take a look at our free media literacy program, Newshounds, just follow the links from our website, squizkids.com.au. And in the meantime, get out there and have a most excellent day.
Over and out.